At last, when this was accomplished to their satisfaction, the real business began. A few thugs were privately detached and sent forward in the dark to select a good killing place and dig the graves. When the rest reached the spot a halt was called, for a rest or a smoke. The travelers were invited to sit. By signs, the chief appointed certain thugs to sit down in front of the travelers, as if to wait upon them, others to sit down beside them and engage them in conversation, and certain expert stranglers to stand behind the travelers and be ready when the signal was given. The signal was usually some commonplace remark, like, "Bring the tobacco." Sometimes a considerable wait ensued after all the actors were in their places. The chief was biding his time, in order to make everything sure. Meantime the talk droned on, dim figures moved about in the dull light. Peace and tranquillity reigned. The travelers resigned themselves to the pleasant reposefulness and comfort of the situation, unconscious of the death angels standing motionless at their backs. The time was ripe now, and the signal came. "Bring the tobacco." There was a mute, swift movement. All in the same instant the men at each victim's sides seized his hands, the man in front seized his feet, and pulled. The man at his back whipped the cloth around his neck and gave it a twist. The head sunk forward. The tragedy was over. The bodies were stripped and covered up in the graves, the spoil packed for transportation. Then the thugs gave pious thanks to Bhowanee and departed on further holy service. The report shows that the travelers moved in exceedingly small groups, twos, threes, fours, as a rule. A party with a dozen in it was rare. The thugs themselves seem to have been the only people who moved in force. They went about in gangs of 10, 15, 25, 40, 60, 100, 150, 200, 250, and one gang of 310 is mentioned. Considering their numbers, their catch was not extraordinary, particularly when you consider that they were not in the least fastidious, but took anybody they could get, whether rich or poor, and sometimes even killed children. Now and then they killed women, but it was considered sinful to do it and unlucky. The "season" was 6 or 8 months long. One season the half-dozen Bundelkhand and Gwalior gangs aggregated 712 men, and they murdered 210 people. One season the Malwa and Kandaish gangs aggregated 702 men, and they murdered 232. One season the Kandaish and Berar gangs aggregated 963 men, and they murdered 385 people. Here is the tally sheet of a gang of 60 thugs for a whole season, gang under two noted chiefs, Choti and Sheikh Nungu, from Gwalior. Left Pura in Jhansi, and on arrival at Sarora murdered a traveler. On nearly reaching Bhopal, met 3 Brahmins and murdered them. Crossed the Nerbuda. At a village called Hutia, murdered a Hindu. Went through Aurungabad to Walago. There met a havildar of the Barber caste and 5 sepoys native soldiers. In the evening came to Jokur, and in the morning killed them near the place where the treasure-bearers were killed the year before. Between Jokur and Dolia met a sepoy of the shepherd caste. Killed him in the jungle. Passed through Dolia and lodged in a village. 2 miles beyond, on the road to Indore, met a Biraji, beggar, holy mendicant. Murdered him at the Tapa. In the morning, beyond the Tapa, fell in with 3 Marwari travelers, murdered them. Near a village on the banks of the Tapti met 4 travelers and killed them. Between Chupra and Doria met a Marwari, murdered him. At Doria met 3 Marwaris, took them 2 miles and murdered them. 2 miles further on, overtaken by 3 treasure-bearers, took them 2 miles and murdered them in the jungle. Came on to Kurgore Batisa in Indore, divided spoil, and dispersed. A total of 27 men murdered on one expedition. Choti, to save his neck, was informer and furnished these facts. Several things are noticeable about his résumé. 1. Business brevity. 2. Absence of emotion. 3. Smallness of the parties encountered by the 60. 4. Variety in character and quality of the game captured. 5. Hindu and Mohammedan chiefs in business together for Bhowanee. 6. The sacred caste of the Brahmins not respected by either. 7. Nor yet the character of that mendicant, that Biraji. A beggar is a holy creature, and some of the gang spared him on that account, no matter how slack business might be, but other gangs slaughtered not only him, but even that sacredest of sacred creatures, the fakir, that repulsive skin and bone thing that goes around naked and mats his bushy hair with dust and dirt, and so beflowers his lean body with ashes that he looks like a spectre. Sometimes a fakir trusted a shade too far in the protection of his sacredness. In the middle of a tally sheet of Feringias, who had been out with 40 thugs, I find a case of the kind. After the killing of 39 men and 1 woman, the fakir appears on the scene. Approaching Dorgao, met 3 pundits, also a fakir, mounted on a pony. He was plastered over with sugar to collect flies, and was covered with them. Drove off the fakir, and killed the other 3. Leaving Dorgao, the fakir joined again, and went on in company to Raojana. Met 6 Kutris on their way from Bombay to Nagpur. Drove off the fakir with stones, and killed the 6 men in camp, and buried them in the grove. Next day the fakir joined again, made him leave at Mana. Beyond there, fell in with 2 Kahars and a sepoy, and came on towards the place selected for the murder. When near it, the fakir came again, losing all patience with him, gave Mithu, one of the gang, 5 rupees $2.50 to murder him and take the sin upon himself. All 4 were strangled, including the fakir. Surprised to find among the fakir's effects 30 pounds of coral, 350 strings of small pearls, 15 strings of large pearls, and a gilt necklace. It is curious the little effect that time has upon a really interesting circumstance. This one, so old, so long ago gone down into oblivion, reads with the same freshness and charm that attach to the news in the morning paper. One's spirits go up, then up again, following the chances which the fakir is running. Now you hope, now you despair, now you hope again, and at last everything comes out right, and you feel a great wave of personal satisfaction go weltering through you, and without thinking, you put out your hand to pat Mithu on the back, when, poof, the whole thing has vanished away, there is nothing there. Mithu and all the crowd have been dust and ashes and forgotten, oh, so many, many, many lagging years. And then comes a sense of injury. You don't know whether Mithu got the swag, along with the sin, or had to divide up the swag and keep all the sin himself. There is no literary art about a government report. It stops a story right in the most interesting place. These reports of thug expeditions run along interminably in one monotonous tune. Met a sepoy, killed him. Met 5 pundits, killed them. Met 4 Rajputs and a woman, killed them, and so on, till the statistics get to be pretty dry. But this small trip of Feringia's 40 had some little variety about it. Once they came across a man hiding in a grave, a thief. He had stolen 1,100 rupees from Dunroj Saith of Paroti. They strangled him and took the money. They had no patience with thieves. They killed 2 treasure-bearers and got 4,000 rupees. They came across 2 bullocks laden with copper pice, and killed the 4 drivers and took the money. There must have been half a ton of it. I think it takes a double handful of pice to make an anna, and 16 annas to make a rupee, and even in those days the rupee was worth only half a dollar. Coming back over their tracks from Baroda, they had another picturesque stroke of luck. The Lohars of Udipur put a traveler in their charge for safety. Dear, dear, across this abysmal gulf of time we still see Feringia's lips uncover his teeth, and through the dim haze we catch the incandescent glimmer of his smile. He accepted that trust, good man, and so we know what went with the traveler. Even Rajas had no terrors for Feringia. He came across an elephant driver belonging to the Raja of Udipur, and promptly strangled him. A total of 100 men and 5 women murdered on this expedition. Among the reports of expeditions we find mention of victims of almost every quality and estate. Native soldiers, fakirs, mendicants, holy water carriers, carpenters, peddlers,